Hello and welcome to this first in a series of videos which is entitled Getting Started with a Screen Reader. Now, the clue is that it's a video. If I was aiming at people using a screen reader, I could just do this as an audio cast. But the point of all this is that this video and its series is actually meant for those people who help people to use a screen reader, i.e. colleagues at work, relatives, friends, carers, volunteers, whoever comes into contact with someone using a screen reader. This will give you an idea of how it works, why we do what we do, and it'll also give you some idea of how best to help the person you're trying to help. Okay, let's get started. I think it's probably a good idea if we start by speaking about the history of screen readers and how it relates to blind and visually impaired people. Back in the olden days, when I first started to use a computer, we had no screen readers. I used to type my programs on paper, then they'd get sent to the card punch department who would punch them up, and then they'd get ready to the computers. And we did have a braille system for printing out the compiled program with its accompanying errors, and then I'd correct them on cards and do the same thing. Things eventually moved on to using terminals, and we could use a terminal because we had equipment that would read characters off an ordinary text terminal. However, in the early 80s, computers began to become graphical in nature. And this was done for a very good reason. It made things a lot easier for people to learn, for a start. If, for example, the example I always use is if, for example, you had a music player on your computer, it would be so much easier if you could actually provide a graphic of the actual hi-fi system or something like that. So people could move the sliders to alter the graphic equalizer. They could click on the buttons which played, start, next track, etc., as you would on a normal hi-fi system. And this, of course, applies to right across the board. If you see a picture of an eraser on the screen, you know if you click on that, you're going to be able to erase things, etc. However, this made things a lot more difficult for us, and we struggled with this at the beginning, and it wasn't until the 90s when people started developing applications that would actually speak the output of a graphical screen. This was done in two ways. One, there were certain things which you could rely on being output at certain times, and the other one was educated guesswork. Now this of course landed us some difficulty, and a screen reader was then designed which enabled us to change certain things. So it would guess something was being output and you could change it so that it actually got it right. And this is where we are nowadays, and in fact the guesswork, a lot of the guesswork at least, has gone out of it. Because Microsoft now have UI automation, which is something that goes on behind the scenes which does allow screen readers to interrogate certain events and things which they couldn't do before. So it takes a lot of the guesswork out. It means that the screen readers can more efficiently decide what's actually on the screen. And there are a few screen readers out there at the moment. The three I will mention are JAWS, which is a paid screen reader, NVDA, which is donationware. It's nice to give a donation, and this is a free screen reader effectively, because obviously there are lots and lots of people out there who can't afford to pay the full price for a screen reader, and it's also open source in a sense, so there are developers out there constantly adding to it. And then there's, of course, the Microsoft screen reader, which is called Narrator. We're going to use Narrator later on in this series, but for the moment, we'll stick with what we've got. And Narrator talks straight out of the box, which is to say you can actually launch it at any point. So if I'm using someone else's computer, for example, and they don't have a screen reader on it, I've got a key combination which I can use which will launch Microsoft's own screen reader. And this is very handy if you go to someone else's house or you use someone else's computer. You can just launch Narrator, do what you have to do, shut down Narrator, and everything's back to normal. Very, very useful. And this Microsoft screen reader is actually advancing. It's becoming better. Whereas it just used to speak, it's now becoming a lot more configurable. It's saying a lot more things. And in fact, I've survived using it. I challenged myself to survive using it for a day, and I managed it. But now we're going to talk about the desktop on the computer. The desktop consists of, in my case, loads of icons which are actual shortcuts to applications which are housed on this computer. And I've got various shortcuts set up here. The one I'm on at the moment, the one that's highlighted, is Ob Studio, which is what I'm using to record this. And when I move focus by using the arrow keys...
Warm server 64, 50. Ob Studio, 41. Loop MIDI, 30 of 105. Contact, 29 of 105.
You'll notice that it speaks whatever item is focused, which is the way we work, which is a bit odd. Because you as sighted people are used to seeing the whole screen, whereas we only see what's focused. And there are times when you might want to describe to the person you're helping what's on the screen. They won't. They'll probably remember some of it, and it will give them a better idea of what's going on. But at the moment I'm on the desktop, and I can move focus by using the arrow keys, and that'll just tell me what's focused. If it read the whole screen out every time, life would become very boring and very difficult, and I haven't got time to listen to the whole screen read out every time. And there are lots of reasons why. The main reason being that speech is linear. And speech being linear, we only get so much in our ear at one time. Words come out one after another. So this means that it's almost a limitation, but it's something that we have got used to. When you open up a web page, you see the whole of the presentation at the front page. The first thing you click on, and up comes a page, and you can see it all, pictures, the whole lot. We have to examine it in minute detail to get what we need to. There are quick ways of getting around things, which when we come to discuss navigating the internet, we'll look at. So I can use my arrow keys, which could take me a very long time. If I happen to know the first letter of something on the desktop, I can just press it and it'll go
G, GitHub Desktop, 76 of 1, G, Google, 77 of 105.
And I'm on Google. If I press enter at this point, whereas you would double click and you would move your mouse onto Google, I've used initial navigation to get there. And now you can see it's highlighted. If I press the enter key...
Enter. Google Chrome David. Search region. Search edit combo.
It invokes Google. There I am. I'm going to close that down using
Alt F4.
Now we're back at the desktop again. There are other things on the screen apart from the desktop. I've got my desktop in front of me, but if I use Tab and Shift Tab, that will move me between objects on the screen. In web pages, it moves me between links and fields and buttons. So if I'm tabbing through a form, for example, I'll type my first name, press tab, then it'll ask me for my surname, press tab, then it'll ask me for my email address, etc., etc. If I'm on a page with just links on it, pressing tab will take me from one link to the next. And again, that's going to be discussed later on this. But in this particular instance, I'm on an ordinary screen, and if I press tab...
Taskbar, widgets 19 degrees Celsius mostly cloudy button off. Widget start button off. Search button off. Task view button off. Chat button off. File Explorer button. Notification Chevron button.
And I can tab around, and I can shift tab.
File Explorer button.
Tab again.
Notification 7 button.
I'm on the notifications. Once you get onto an object, you can use other keys to interact with it. So I'm on the notifications at the moment. If I use my right arrow...
System tray Windows security actions recommended. OneDrive personal up-to-date button. Get the latest features and security in Dropbox 157. Privacy button apps using your microphone. Ob Studio button.
And as before, if I wanted to activate any of those, I could press the Enter key. So let's tab again and take ourselves back to the desktop.
Folder view list view. Doodle 70.
And we're back at the desktop again. The other thing I want to cover very briefly in this tutorial, this first tutorial, is access to the Start menu. Now, the Windows key, which is the key next to the Alt key on your keyboard, on the bottom left, will take you here.
Search box edit.
Takes you to a search box, and if you start typing something, it'll probably find an app on your machine, or it'll find something on the internet. So you're searching. If I type
W, Word, app, press right to switch preview.
As soon as I typed W, it said Word, and I'm actually focused on Word app, and it said press right to preview, which I don't want to do. But if I press Enter,
Enter. List box Word, new list box, blank document, 1 of 9, Alt followed by F, H, Y2.
I've focused on a list view now, and it's giving me some choices. Again, pressing Enter.
Enter. Document 1.
And I'm in Word, and I'm in an open document. I'm going to press Alt F4 to close that.
Alt F4.
And that
Doodle.
brings us back to the desktop again. If I press the Windows key,
Search box edit.
and then I just down arrow without searching,
Pinned recommended. Pinned list box. Facebook, 20 of 28. Word, 2 of 28. Excel, 3 of 20. PowerPoint, 4 Mail, 5 of 20. Calendar, 6 Microsoft Store, 7 of 28.
you press the arrow keys, they will actually take you through all the things that are pinned to the Start menu.
Escape.
Everything is in the Start menu, but when something is pinned, it goes into that block at the bottom of the screen. In other words, it's your favourite. So if you want to make life easier for the person you're helping, then pin something to that area in the Start menu, and they'll be able to find it more easily. And you could also, in fact, set up a shortcut on the desktop to do that as well, both of which we'll go through later. The other thing you can do is actually arrow through the whole of the Start menu, but we're not going to do that today. It's something which is very, very rarely used, and if you're setting up for someone for the first time, or someone's fairly new to this concept, then I wouldn't recommend it. In the next video, we'll be doing some more on the desktop, and we'll also be talking about how you can simplify things by setting up shortcuts and indeed hotkeys to achieve things on Windows. And I hope this video has been instructive and interesting, and I hope that you'll come back for more. If you liked it, then please click the bell, and also I'd be happy to answer any comments or questions, so use the comment section underneath to do that. If this is something which you don't find useful, but you think someone else might find it useful, then please share it. I'm looking forward to doing the next video and seeing you all again soon. But for now, goodbye.